Welcome back. If you're new, welcome in the first place. We're going to be doing a double bill today of 1954's Devil Girl from Mars and 1959's Horrors of the Black Museum. Two British classics of the era, I'd say, for different reasons, and they don't really feel like they're of the same era. So, a couple of minutes on each. Devil Girl from Mars from 1954 is what was called a quota quickie. A quota quickie, as well as being fun to say, is when American distributors were told, you're kind of ruining our film industry. You need to start having more British casts, more British crew, so that you're not coming over here and ruining our British film industry. So they got round that essentially by having a lot of the supporting cast but not the stars played by Brits when it comes to the A pictures. But for the B pictures, that's where they met the quota. They just cast all British cast and crew and threw anything that sticks to the wall essentially. And they became known as quota quickies. And Devil Girl from Mars is indeed one of these quota quickies. It's very much in the middle of that era of science fiction films in general. So we're just removed from War of the Worlds. We haven't even had Invaders from Mars, or we just about did when this came out. But we haven't had. We're still a couple of years away from Thing from Another World and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So we're still very much in that first wave of science fiction of this era. And being a very low budget British film, B movie, this has to do it all pretty much on one set, and then kind of a smaller secondary set. So two sets if you're being very generous. The spaceship and the hotel, the motel. So it's the story of the Scottish hotel where a bunch of people are there one night and there's a meteor shower being reported. A scientist comes to get the best view, which is going to be in the Scottish Highlands. He's got a writer with him, a journalist, and there's various and sundry staying over at the hotel anyway. And it's not a meteor shower, it's actually the landing of a devil girl from Mars. So the devil girl from Mars comes, who's called Naya. And this isn't some exploitation like, oh, she doesn't look like that in the actual film. That's exactly how she looks. Naya's design, Naya played by, what's her name? Patricia Laffan, I want to say. Yes, Patricia Laffan. Is such a wonderful piece of design work. She feels like classic B movie, classic sci-fi B movie. You can see her there. Every time she enters, the film is the secondary set that I mentioned is her ship, so they go forth and back a couple of times to her ship, and that's it. That's the extent of the journey of the film. But every time she re-enters the room, it is very much, I am here, I am magnificent, vixen-like, and she does have a very S&M kind of attire to her, and that goes right down full body wise. It's stunning stuff. It's a great piece of design. Her performance itself is stilted, but I think that's intentionally so. First of all, she's alien, and second of all, she looks down her nose at humanity. She's not got time. We're primitives. So she's snooty with it as well. A right nasty piece of work. And the reason that she's here in Scotland, in the middle of nowhere, is her ship was trying to get to London and crashed. And the reason that she's trying to get to London is to make it the pictures. No, she's trying to get men. If she just put an advert in the paper, she would have got more. Get men to come back to Mars and help her repopulate. And if she just said, we look like this on Mars, any volunteers? They wouldn't need to come and conquer anything. And this is their ship. This is their ship, you see. And wonderfully, in the interior, it looks like the TARDIS, I think. It's a very proto-TARDIS. Stick a central column and some buttons on there and you've got the TARDIS. So, yeah, great stuff. And again, her performance is very much the eye of the duck. Without that, it doesn't make sense. And it needs to be fun, it needs to be over the top, it needs to be a little bit campy, it needs to be a little bit frightening if you're young, I suppose. But it is all those things and more. She manages to pull it off wonderfully. There's absolutely nothing revelatory about the film. There's no filmmaking you can point to and say that's brilliant. There's some incredibly clunky dialogue. She has this scene where her and the scientist who's there to study the meteor shower have a scene where he asks, and how does your technology work? And she explains, and they have about 60 seconds of back and forth jargon, just verbal diarrhea that it makes no sense. It's technobabble of the highest order. It would make Geordi LaForge from Star Trek Next Generation blush, but it sounds like, hey, this professor knows what he's talking about, and she must be from an advanced species after all, because I don't know what they're talking about. So it serves its purpose even there. It's just a good old rollicking B movie, and it's what, an hour and it's not even an hour and 10. It's an hour and 5, I think. It's phenomenally fun. You don't have time to get bored. You really don't. I mean, there's a subplot about a romance that does not need to exist, but hey. And it stars future Hammer stars, Hazel Court, who would go on to Curse of Frankenstein, and it stars Adrienne Corday as well. She's in there, so few notable names who would go on to some classics of genre film in Britain. But Devil Girl from Mars, pretty essential if you like sci-fi of the 50s, because this is the British version, so you're kind of getting one of the very lonesome examples of that subgenre, in the way that, say, Conga is for, or Gorgo is for kaiju film. And then we have 1959's Horrors of the Black Museum. Horror of the Black Museum comes out 59, so it's only 5 years later. Feels like a lifetime later, because we've got Hammer all of a sudden. We've got a lot of knockoff Hammers, and Anglo Amalgamated, the company behind this, wanted to push the boundaries. Okay, so Hammer's making money, what can we do to capitalise on this? Okay, they're doing gothics. Let's do some more contemporary films and really push the boundaries of violence and sex and see what we can get away with. And they made this unrelated trilogy that was coined as a trilogy by David Perry of the Sadian trilogy, so sadomasochistic movies, of this Circus of Horrors and Peeping Tom. Peeping Tom, of course, rather better than the other two, directed by Michael Powell, soon to be released on 4K. But this is essentially the start of that not connected at all trilogy. And it stars Michael Gough as a crime writer who is looking into these murders in London. And let's not even beat about the bush, because the film doesn't. He's committing these murders in London, and they are very horrific. They're not just a simple slash and run. They are, in the case of one, which I'm sure has a card here, they are very much like Peeping Toms would come to be. These binoculars turn into, right through the eyes and through the brain, murder weapon. Someone else gets done in by these rather large pincers. And we have a very young Shirley Ann Field in here as well. Someone else takes an acid bath and gets turned into that skeleton live as we watch. Wonderful stuff. So incredibly gruesome for 1959. Really pushing the boundaries of what you could get away with. What lets it down for me, and it's a common factor in films that he's in, is Michael Gough. Michael Gough, who people know from, probably best known to modern audiences as Alfred from those Batman movies of the 80s and 90s. If he didn't believe in a script, he let you know it. He just didn't try. He's the worst thing in Dracula by a country mile. You know, I mean, his sister dies and he's got no emotion. In here, watch his eyes when he's supposed to be giving the maniacal speech. You know, I've created a potion that will do. He's not got any energy. The eyes are dead. honestly, he brings films down. And it's only the fact that he had a natural talent that kind of disguises that, because even vocally he's still putting in that effort because his voice was so rich and plummy. So he manages to get away with it, and I think cast a little bit of a blanket over his stilted and dead performances, where he clearly just didn't care in a lot of these films, up to and including like Horror Hospital and things. But here, in a few places, it works. And it tends to be in those places where he's obviously hiding that he's the killer, but he's a crime writer who is ostensibly interested in writing up these killings, even though he's doing them, obviously. So it kind of works that he's a bad actor, or he's not actor. He's a good actor, but he's not trying very hard, because he's acting as the character as well. The character himself is putting up a front of not being the killer. That's about as much as I can justify for Michael Gough. But in a few places where he's playing off the police and there's a little bit of a rapport with the actors, maybe, that works better. With an antique shop owner who he gets a lot of his torture devices from, that works. With his assistant, it doesn't work at all. That's where you'll notice the differences. But this is still a really fun film, purely for the earliness of some of the things they're getting away with on screen here, the really brutal depictions. We're still in the 50s, and blades through eyeballs and people melting on screen, and pretty horrendous stuff. It essentially takes something like, there's a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde thrown in, and they mention it so you really notice it, but then adds the mad professor trope on there. So even though he's a writer with a dungeon and a torture chamber, essentially, he's also got this side of it that's like a laboratory. So they add the mad professor trope. And there's still a little bit of that gothic feel, because anytime you have young girls in peril in London, you're going to be thinking, even subconsciously, of Jack the Ripper. It's just natural to do so. When you see these people, extra, read all about it, latest killing in Whitehall, that kind of thing, you're going to be thinking of that. So I'd still really highly recommend this. I just think, I don't know, let me know if I'm off base, and Michael Gough was actually a brilliant actor, but for me, take his performance in Phantom of the Opera, where he's brilliant, and compare it to Dracula, where he's terrible. I just think he read scripts, and if he didn't believe that they were worthy of him, he just did as little as he could get away with. But the production is so good, and the set pieces are so ahead of their time and so pushing the boundaries, that I think it's still worthy of any 50s horror, British horror collection, especially for someone who likes those answer films to Hammer. We're going to do our own Hammer films. There's so many of them. But yeah, this is certainly one of the most notable of that time. One of the most notable from Anglo Amalgamated. But again, if you only can get one, then get... Where did she go? Oh, there she is. Bloody Devil Girl from Mars. This is just a brilliant example of low budget sci-fi. Take out the British part, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it just as 50s B movie, low budget sci-fi. So yeah, a couple of minor classics. And nobody's going to put these in their Sight and Sound 10 of all time, but I think they are more than worthy of your collection if you like these kind of things. If not, probably not the best places to start, but hey. So start with the big hitters of 50s sci-fi if you haven't. Start with Hammer if you haven't for 50s horror, but there you go. We'll draw the line there, folks. I'll be back at the weekend for albums of 2023 as promised, and this was a quickie of my own on my lunch hour, no less. And I'll see you when I see you.